everyone, it's Shane Kanto, your Wasteland Reviewer. Welcome to the Wasteland, my weekly show where I take a deep dive into a particular film and continuing that Spielberg train and having a second film from 1997 because boy does Spielberg like throwing out some double headers. And 93 was quite one, and now we got 97 with more dinosaurs, but this time instead of the Holocaust, we're dealing with slave trading. So equally as uplifting. But
Yeah,
one of my most frequent collaborators here, Foster, is back. Foster, thank you so much for coming on.
thanks for having me again.
And time to shamelessly plug before we hop into the show.
Yeah, just letterboxed FOSTH 101.
There you go. Now, I do want to throw this out there as this is going to be starting up. So, yes, I'm in the middle of doing Steven Spielberg, and I will be until I think the first week in January is when I'll probably be doing the Fablemans. And that'll be my last one. But I have to pick a new director afterwards. And starting September 1st, so right the day before this video comes out, I'm going to be starting my new campaign on Instagram of my next directors tournament. And as of right now, I've been taking nominations from people, and I have about 50 directors that have received nominations. And surprise, surprise, Tarantino and Nolan have got the most nominations. But it'll be interesting. And I'm waiting for me to have a final between Nolan and Tarantino. And you never know. A Hitchcock could get thrown in there. There's no more Scorsese and Spielberg, so we'll have to see how it goes. But that's just out there just to keep you all informed. But if you haven't tuned in to Welcome to the Wasteland before, the show has 3 segments. We start off with Coming Attractions, which will be for September 2nd. And then we'll get to our feature film of the week, which is Amistad. And then we'll be getting to some recommendations, and I know I have a few. It's been a while since I recorded one of these, so I've watched a lot of things. But Foster, what are you looking forward to most coming out the weekend of the 2nd?
All right, so this is a TV show, but Rings of Power is the big thing. I think it's September 1st or 2nd, one of those. Aren't they doing like a 2-part premiere? Am I
I'm
making that
trying
up?
to remember when it's supposed to drop. I see every time I turn on my Prime app, it's just like Rings of Power. Watch
Yeah,
the trailer.
yeah. So I mean, this is huge, right? Like this is a lot of money. So
Yes.
you hope it's good. My only fear, I guess, is that it's going to be like too clean and it'll feel like something that was produced by Amazon compared to like the Peter Jackson ones. They're just so gritty, which is
Mhm.
like part of what makes them feel real, like like they feel like real people. And I think the trailers for Rings of Power are pretty great.
Mhm.
And like the scenes where you have like lots of extras just marching up a hill with like their lights winding up the crooked pathway, or like the people on the horses, like it hypes you up. And also I love the way they do the orcs. Have you seen like the behind the scenes photos of the orcs? The
Yeah.
effects are nasty. It's so that they're doing a good job there, I think. Yeah, I guess it's just the story and the characters is what it's going to come down to.
We're gonna have to see. And, between this and House of the Dragon,
Yeah.
fantasies like, are you ready? And you know, at this point, the first episode of House of Dragon came out, and the second one's going to be debuting tonight as we're recording on a Sunday. So it's a good time to be a fantasy fan, and just hopefully this one lives up to the hype. And
Hmm.
they got all that Amazon money, that Jeff Bezos money, which is like endless. So they could just keep
Yeah.
making stuff. But in terms of films coming out this weekend, the strangest thing is probably the 2 biggest releases are re-releases because Jaws is coming out in IMAX and Spider-Man No Way Home, the more fun stuff version, has 11 minutes of extra footage, which has deleted scenes of more Peter Parkers and all kinds of stuff. So I'm wondering what's going to lead the box office that weekend. And which is also interesting because they also announced movie theater day. All the big theaters are going to be charging $3 a ticket on the 3rd, which I'm like, if I didn't have AMC A-list and didn't actually
Yeah.
pay for them in the first place. So maybe because Labor Day weekend is one of the worst weekends for films and releases, which also probably makes sense why they didn't release anything big. But the number one release is Honk for Jesus, Save Your Soul. And this is produced by Jordan Peele and Daniel Kaluuya and starring Regina Hall and Sterling K. Brown as this couple who run this church. Some kind of scandal happened, and they're dealing with the trying to keep their marriage together, trying to bring their church back, and all the wonderful satire that goes on into modern, formal traditional uh, Christian faith. And Foster, why are you excited for this one?
Oh, Sterling K. Brown. I love Sterling K. Brown. He is one of my favorite people. Okay, so by the way, he's like the only person who knew what was going on with the Predator movie. He was having fun, and I was having fun watching him, even though I wasn't having fun with the rest of the movie. He's great in People vs. O.J. Simpson. I've not gone through all of This Is Us, but I saw the first season, and he's definitely like a standout. He's amazing in it. He's great in Waves. I think he's great in Black Panther, even though he's only in a couple minutes.
Yeah.
I never hear people bring up his performance. Everyone always talks about like Michael B. Jordan, but I don't know. Sterling K. Brown, even in those couple minutes, is like gives maybe even one of, if not my favorite performances in the movie.
Yeah.
And he just seems like a really nice, like super charismatic guy. Like he could abduct me into his cult or whatever, sell me anything he wants. I would do it. So I feel like he's perfect for this. And I don't know. I haven't seen Regina Hall in much, but I mean, from the people who've seen this, I think you've seen this too, right? Already.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I think everyone says she's great in this too. So I feel like it's just going to be a great little showcase for them both. And I don't know, it has kind of like a fun energy.
Mm-hmm.
Is that right?
Which, here's the thing. The film has a lot darker edge
Yeah.
to the satire than it kind of gives off in the trailer, but it's hilarious. And yes, I have seen it and I loved it.
Yeah.
And I can't wait for other people to check it out because Regina Hall gives one of the best performances that I've seen this year. And Sterling K. Brown is towering in
Nice.
this film. And also, how this film kind of plays out what happened is really messed up and disturbing. And Sterling K. Brown is so important to how that plays out that this is something that needs to be seen. And it's disappointing because it's dropping in like dead space during Labor Day weekend because like the box office numbers for this weekend are atrocious, and I honestly want to bet money that next weekend the top three of the top films are going to be Jaws, Spider-Man, and Top Gun. And it's just going to be like, well, what the hell's going on in Hollywood right now? But please, 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 people, go check this one out. But what we're here to talk about is Amistad. And this is a Steven Spielberg film, obviously, because that's what I've been talking about for months. And this focuses on a slave revolt on a ship in 1839 where Spanish-owned ship is mutinied on by the slaves on this ship who are of Mende tribe in Africa, and they wind up on American soil. They get put on trial. Who has ownership? The Queen of Spain, who's 11 years old and is Anna Paquin, which thought was hilarious, honestly. She claims them. The two men who bought them on the boat, who get mutinied against, claim them. Like 5 different entities claim them, but then they're put on trial and are defended by Matthew McConaughey, who, hey, you need to take Matthew McConaughey seriously, make him a lawyer. Time to Kill, Amistad, The Lincoln Lawyer.
There we go.
There you go. Because like it's so interesting watching him here because I take him so seriously as an actor in this film. But like,
Mhm.
can you imagine in like '97 when he did have time to kill, but still like this was like rom-com guy.
Oh, I was thinking because I've been going through the Texas Chainsaw movies, and I just saw him like a couple weeks ago
Yeah.
in '95 doing like crazy man material, and so it's
Yeah.
really funny seeing him. Maybe
Now, this film was nominated for 4 Oscars. It was nominated for Best Supporting Actor Anthony Hopkins, which we're gonna definitely talk about it. But one
yeah.
scene in front of the Supreme Court, and you're just like, just like this is why they get Anthony Hopkins in this movie. Um, Jans Kaminski for cinematography, which he just starting that career with Spielberg here between Schindler's List, Lost World, and this. Best costume design, Ruth E. Carter, and then of course John Williams for score. Now, Foster, what interested you in coming on for this Amistad episode?
So I basically use your show as an excuse to check off movies off my watch list. So that's why I wanted to see this one because I'd never seen it before, and it's Spielberg, and it's got a lot of great people in it. It's a huge cast actually. Like
So I'm gonna get to that, but this was
yeah.
also my first time watching this.
Okay.
So reading this, I just honestly want to read this off real quick because
Yeah, go for it.
pre-Lincoln, I'm like, how did you get so many
Yeah,
people?
Lincoln is insane. When you go back to that, you're like, there's like David Oyelowo and Dane DeHaan and like Adam Driver and a million
Opening
people.
scene.
I
Just
know.
like, what? So we have Morgan Freeman, who
Yep.
is an abolitionist, Nigel Hawthorne, who's President Martin Van Buren, Anthony Hopkins, who's former President John Quincy Adams, Daingen Hansu, who is the kind of the unofficial leader of the slaves who gets the most screen time.
Mhm.
Matthew McConaughey is a like a real estate lawyer who's like, hey, I could do this. Him and his mutton chops.
Yeah.
Actors like David Paymer, who's Secretary John Forsyth. He's a kind of character actor like you've seen him before.
Mhm.
He passed away. Just watched In the Name of the Father right before recording this. Stellan Skarsgård, who's an abolitionist. Like I said, Anna Paquin, who's the queen.
Yeah.
Chiwetel Ejiofor, who just so happens to be on the docks at the right time.
Yeah. I think
And
this is his first movie.
yeah, it turns into a translator. Gino Silva and John Ortiz are the two men whose boat was taken over. I'm just looking at, I think it took me until the 6th time he was on the screen to be like, is that John Ortiz?
Yeah. Yeah.
Going through here, there's just like Paul Guilfoyle from like CSI, who winds up being the attorney for the two of them. Uh, just so many, even just like small roles like Arliss Howard or John C. Calhoun, who was just in Lost World Jurassic Park as Hammond's nephew.
Wasn't Pete
Uh,
Postlethwaite in Lost World?
hmm?
Was Pete
Yeah,
Postlethwaite in Lost? Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah.
carrying a couple people over from his last film,
Yeah.
which I'm assuming they filmed Lost World first because all the time you have to spend in post with all that special effects and CGI and stuff.
That would make sense.
There's just so many people, and there's probably even more people that are just
Yeah.
like
There's
tiny character actors.
Jeremy Northam plays the new judge.
Yep.
Peter Firth plays like the Royal Navy captain. Who I just saw Peter Firth in Equus because I'm going through a few
Okay.
Sidney Lumet movies, and he's
Nice.
amazing. He's amazing in that. And then Xander Berkeley, who I'm learning now, the more movies I watch, the more I realize Xander Berkeley is in literally every movie ever made in just like a tiny side role. It's really funny. Yeah, it's fun to watch.
I will be reading the cast list of Lincoln when I do that episode, and that will be 30 minutes by itself.
Mhm. Gonna be a two-parter.
Yep, gonna have to split the episode in two just to read the cast list. And like, there's a lot of big name people in that, in some of the most random roles. But we're here to talk about Amistad. So, Foster, what were some of your general thoughts on the film?
Yeah, I think it's good. I don't think it's like the best Spielberg movie on the planet. I don't think it's bad at all. I would say it's like above neutral, if that makes sense. But it's like it's not really as emotionally affecting as like Schindler's List, which
Yeah.
is like that's the easy comparison. Because he had just made it a couple years before. And it's discussing like a really kind of tough period of history. I will say, Jimon Hansu, I'm sure I pronounced it wrong, is amazing. And
Hmm.
I think this is one of those times when you like look at the Academy and you're like, it's not a great look when you just nominate Anthony Hopkins, even though he's only in like the last half hour. Really, is when he really shows up for
Yeah.
this movie. Anthony Hopkins is amazing in this, and of course, hot take: Anthony Hopkins
Yeah.
is a good actor.
Wait, what? Anthony Hopkins is great in a movie?
Yeah, also I gotta say, I was thinking like this seems like a role he would take like today, but then I was realizing, wait a minute, this is only 6 years away from Silence of the Lambs, and he's playing John Quincy Adams. That's crazy. He
Yeah.
really is kind of amazing. And apparently from the IMDb trivia, that final little monologue he does, it's 7 pages long. He ran through without stopping. Didn't even no cuts, just like went
Well,
through the whole thing.
do you know what his process is? He reads a script 250 times
I've
before
heard
he
that
acts in
before.
a movie.
That's
Also,
crazy.
he was diagnosed with late in life at 70 years old
Yeah.
that he's autistic. So like I'm not surprised, but like,
Mm,
oh my god, that scene. Like, I just wish I was one of the actors on set
I
to
know.
experience him just doing that in front of me.
Yeah.
And oh, and you're absolutely right about Daijin Hansu because like I don't think he got real recognition until Blood Diamond.
I think I haven't seen this, so I don't know anything about this movie. In America, it's directed by Jim Sheridan, who I think also directed In the Name of the Father.
I
I know
just saw
Timon.
that. I was looking
Yeah,
up on IMDb.
yeah, yeah. So he was nominated for that too. So he's been nominated 2 times. But yeah, yeah. Like what you're saying, I feel like he should have had a much bigger career. And when you look at his IMDb, like he's got some great stuff from like this point up until Blood Diamond, and then nothing except like really small character roles in big movies, and it's kind of a shame because
Yeah,
he's
like
like a powerhouse in this.
because he's Korath the
Hmm.
pursuer, and yeah, somehow I remembered his name from
And he's in
Guardians of the
Shazam as the
Galaxy.
wizard.
Yeah, Shazam.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. He's in the
And
Kingsman briefly. It's just like he should be leading. Like he's
yeah,
really really amazing.
and they even pull him in for a couple minutes in Quiet Place Part Two.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
like that's the thing, that's where his career is now, and that's a shame because he is such a talented actor. I think the first thing I saw him in is his supporting role, and I think it's a significant supporting role in Gladiator.
Oh, he's so good. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and that's such a great role for him, and that's the thing. Keeps getting outshined by older famous British actors because like Oliver Reed in that,
Sure.
and like Anthony Hopkins here, and like this is the kind of thing where this was a great like. I love Matthew McConaughey in A Time to Kill. I think he gives a really strong performance in this film too.
Mhm.
You know, you have Morgan Freeman just thrown in there too.
Yeah, yeah.
Stellan Skarsgård was in a couple of interesting films around this point because he was in Good Will Hunting
Hmm.
and then this. But this film, I agree. So, like, I've been ranking my Spielberg as I've been watching them, so I don't have to try to remember later.
Yeah.
Um, this falls right below that, like, masterpiece tier that I like to refer to because, like, at this point, thinking about it, how I have Spielberg ranked, because, like, you have I have the first and third Indiana Jones, Jurassic Park, Jaws, Schindler's List, Close Encounters, E.T. are all like here.
Hmm.
Duel, which I love that movie.
Okay.
And like I have this right below that. I do feel like this is a stronger film than like Lost World Jurassic Park or Temple of Doom or like Color Purple. But yeah, it's so well done And there's definitely very emotional moments. Like I was moved by that speech in front of the Supreme Court. The whole sequence where you see their story
Mm,
of like what
yeah,
happened to them, and I'm like, disgusting and brutal. And it's the kind of thing where, like, in Schindler's List, that's sprinkled throughout the whole entire movie.
yeah.
You don't get the chance to like forget it.
Hmm.
And this one is just like, and I thought it was interesting narratively because it's just like plopped in the middle of the
It
film,
is. Yeah.
and it goes on. I'm just like, are we like? I guess we're going all the way through the story here
Yeah.
at this moment, because like this is a 2.5 hour film, and that's a big chunk of it. Is that like second act reveal of like their whole journey to this place, and it has those like big courtroom gotcha moments, um,
Hmm.
that really grab you, or you know, there's some like I wouldn't say necessarily like outwardly funny moments, but like Matthew McConaughey interacting with them first, where he's just like sand, and like the whole thing with the chair and all that kind of stuff. Like you could tell Matthew McConaughey's like pulling his like charisma into the situation. I do feel like this is a really moving film at times, and it does fall into those pitfalls of like this feels like a historical drama. It
Yeah.
doesn't really leave that box, I feel like, at times.
Okay, I feel like there's two scenes. One of them you mentioned, the middle scene, where I feel like it kind of ascends beyond the what it is. The other one is the opening. I thought the like opening 5 minutes was like one of the greatest openings I've ever seen in my life. And
Yeah.
it's like I was I was not ready for it. And it almost like set expectations too high for the rest of the movie, but it's so well shot. It's like it's lit in the nighttime and they're like illuminated by the reflection of the rain and
Yeah.
splashing onto the board and oh man. And
So I'm thinking right now, what if this film was that middle section at the beginning into that scene? I feel like it would lose a lot of people along the way,
mm,
because then it's just straight up just this historical courtroom drama the whole rest of the film.
yeah.
And like you said, that opening really sets the tone and really hooks you. Can you
Yeah.
imagine they dump all of that stuff in the beginning, like the
Hmm.
first act of the film, and then you're like kind of like brought back down to just like, well, now we're in the courtroom, we're dealing with this kind of stuff. But you're absolutely right. That how Jans Kaminski shot that was the I think the most impressive moment when you see Daijin Hansu walking through that rain, like in the night at them, and you're just like,
He's so good. Yeah.
yep, that works so well. You have the whole entire thing where it's just like, you have the convenient things where like let's learn a couple of numbers and walk around the dock, and
I
like
know. Let me just loudly count to 10 in the hopes that someone can. Yeah.
yeah, and just like that's where we get Chiwetel Ejiofor's character just pops up. It's just like,
Yeah.
you speak my language,
Yeah.
and you have a couple of those moments that feel a little, I don't know, like feel a little easy to try
Hmm.
to solve that problem. I do think there was one particular scene that hit hard too, was when they're investigating the boat,
Hmm.
and Matthew McConaughey is like looking around for evidence, and Morgan Freeman winds up finding himself in the slave gallows.
Mm.
And like I feel like that was a pretty emotional moment too. It was
Hmm.
small, it was brief. It wasn't something that like lasted for a couple minutes, but like that kind of got thrown in there too. Um, there's just some really strong acting in this film, and like we've already mentioned multiple times the Anthony Hopkins scene in front of the Supreme Court, but that moment where it's like everything seemed okay, they won the case, and then it's a
Hmm.
dinner party,
Yeah.
and was that John's, that was Calhoun who came in and was just like threatening civil war,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
and I'm just like, ooh, that was one of those moments in a movie where you're just like, because like, at that moment you're like, there's like 30 plus minutes left in this movie. Something
Mhm.
has to happen. And of course that happened. And you're just like, ooh, I hate this piece of shit. Like it's one of those kind of moments. And I'm pretty sure that was Hammond's nephew from Lost World Jurassic Park. I'm like, you're a bad man. I do not like you. But Foster, what other things stood out to you of the film?
Yeah, I mean, there are some good courtroom scenes. The one that stands out to me, it's when Peter Firth is on the stand from the Royal Navy, and Pete Postlethwaite is doing the like interrogation. Pete Postlethwaite, by the way, is really good in this movie, but he is a frustrating man.
Yeah.
um, and because Peter Firth's talking about the 50 pounds that was removed from the cargo list or whatever, and you're like, oh, yikes, when you realize what it is, and then Pete Postlethwaite just like seems so unmoved by it. It's just like very coldly interrogating him, like, I don't see on the registry where it says this, that it was the slaves that were thrown off. Where does it say that? Peter Firth.
Yeah, and it's just like I think the worst part is like when he tries to make that argument of like, why would you want to just throw your property off of a boat?
Oh man, yeah.
And I'm just like, I hate you.
Yeah, because it's horrible because there's so many scenes where they're like, I wonder if we could get them off, because technically they're this property or that property. And it's like, how about because they're people,
Well, and that's the thing. That's
you
how
know?
and that's that's the context of watching this. Well,
Yeah.
that was the context watching this in '97. It's a context watching it in 2022.
Mm-hmm.
And Matthew McConaughey started off that way in the film. And
Mm-hmm.
like, he has a similar type arc in A Time to Kill where he's just like, he's about the money and winning those cases and like takes on this job. And here he's just like, well, if we could get around to this, and it's just like, and oh, what a heel turn for Stellan Skarsgård, who's like really upset at that moment, but then later in the movie's like, maybe we should martyr them. It's just like, whoa, man, what the hell? And Morgan Freeman calls him out on his stuff, and you know, I think the film does a. And here's the thing, it it's interesting watching this in 2022 because you would like to think in hindsight it's just like this is such a no-brainer. These are human beings,
Mm-hmm.
and but still have our issues today. But we've seen so many films about like slavery and stuff like that, and how more movies we could possibly see about slavery and stuff like that. But I do think that this is a strong courtroom drama. It does have those really impressive moments and you know what? This film really does soar when it is focusing on Daijin Hansu and those moments. And
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it's kind of natural, especially still in like '97, for this movie to really spend a ton of time with like the white lawyers and stuff like that in
Yeah.
the film. And it's just like, you know, it at times it does really reek of that, like this is a historical drama, but it does have those moments where it really transcends that. And
Yeah.
I think Spielberg and Kaminsky do such amazing jobs with those sequences in the film.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's a great sum up right there.
But yeah, do you have any last comments or anything about Amistad?
I mean, I guess my sum up, I think I like it a little bit less than you.
Mm-hmm.
Partly what you just said there. It does feel kind of like here's this like big thing on the boat, and then now let's spend 2 hours like just following the lawyers around. And I feel like I don't know, it lost a little bit of steam for me at a couple points. I do think Matthew McConaughey's good, but it's not like as powerful as like Liam Neeson in Schindler's List, for example. I
Yeah.
do keep comparing those two in my mind. Um, Also, before I watched the movie, I was trying to like read up on it, and from what I understand, not like completely 100% faithful to the story, in the sense that I think the movie presents this as like the precursor to the Civil War and was like directly tied to Americans' feelings on slavery, versus in real life it was maybe just like there's this case that happens like
Yeah,
however many years before, and um,
gotta add that extra drama in.
yeah, it's like so I don't know. Something about this to me felt like a little bit sugary and as like a Hollywood type of movie where it like felt like it was trying to tug on your heartstrings a little bit with like big impassioned speeches and movie
Yeah.
moments. Whereas to me, Schindler's List just feels like it's like almost uncomfortable because you're watching things that seem so real. Like I just remember my experience with Schindler's List. I've seen it a few times, but like when I last watched it like 5 years ago, I was bawling during it, and I don't really do that during movies. I'll like tear up a lot, but it was like the first time that it was actually real for me. And so, like, of course, when I'm comparing Amistad to that experience, I feel like that should be the experience that I have while watching this because it's like similarly terrible stuff happening on screen, and I felt it at moments too. But I don't know. I might have preferred actually like a movie about the journey on the boat. Like that would have been really compelling to me. It reminded me of like I know you like Ben-Hur, like the boat stuff in there,
Yeah.
like staring people down.
Well, you know what's interesting how you frame it that way, Foster, is Schindler's List is about the atrocities and what's going on during it. This is has scenes of the atrocities and then it's about the court later.
Yeah.
It's it's a bit removed from it. And I know Kaminsky's cinematography is very documentarian in Schindler's List, and you feel like you're there. And
Mm-hmm.
that just makes it that much more impactful. This does feel like it's beautifully shot, but it does still feel like we're in a courtroom and like we're watching a movie kind of thing.
Yeah, the difference between like the boat scenes and the courtroom scenes, they're shot kind of differently too. Like the ones on the water are really dynamic. Like the camera's like almost like a buoy in the ocean, and then the courtroom ones are mostly pretty standard. There's some exceptions. Like I like the one with Pete Postlethwaite versus Peter Firth. That was real cool, and the
Yep.
editing was cool. There's like lots of uncomfortable up close shots on people's faces. I love that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, that was one of the few times during those courtroom scenes where I feel like it felt like inspired filmmaking.
Yeah, and maybe if more of it were like that, then I wouldn't mind the courtroom stuff as much. It's just that it is a long movie. It's like 2.5 hours.
Yep.
A little bit too long for me personally.
Yeah,
But
I there's definitely times where like I lost some interest in terms of like the courtroom scenes and stuff like that. And you do wish that there was more of that dynamic filmmaking.
mhm.
Just as my next episode is going to be Saving Private Ryan.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
Is that going to
yeah,
be Heath?
yep.
Yeah.
I didn't even ask anybody else. I'm just like, hey Heath, you're coming up
Yeah,
for Saving Private Ryan, right?
yeah. Also in this movie, maybe another approach they could have taken. I really liked the stuff when Matthew McConaughey was just meeting Jimon Hansu and they were trying to communicate with each other, and they were like drawing
Mhm.
on the floor and being like, "I'm from here. Where are you from?" That kind of stuff really appeals to me. I wouldn't have minded more of that, honestly.
But then they get the translator, and
Yeah,
then that that interesting discovery kind of goes away because then you have a
yeah.
translator, and it's like makes it easier
Yeah.
for them to communicate.
Yeah. I'm just trying to think. Like, I feel like there's different approaches where the story could have grabbed me a little bit more than it did. I still think it's really good. Like if it's interesting at all to you, then it's worth watching because
Mm-hmm.
it's Steven Spielberg. And I've been looking like at all the cinematographers. I'm trying to learn like cinematographers' names, and I'm more and more gradually I'm getting more of them. And before this, it was like before Janusz Kaminski and Schindler's List, it was like just kind of random different people for
Yeah.
every movie. Sometimes reusing them once or twice, but like the Giannis Kaminsky ones look amazing. It's also clear you can tell a difference in style. It's like more modern and clean too, so it's really interesting.
Well, that's how one of the biggest things that I got to talk about in terms of Jurassic Park versus Lost World Jurassic Park
Hmm.
is that Jurassic Park is so vibrant and colorful and it
Yeah,
matches the wonder. It needed that. You needed that part of that film. Lost World's not supposed to be about that anymore. You're past that. Now you're just like, these things are going to kill you.
hmm,
And that grittier look to it, I think, fits that film better.
yeah.
And obviously, Lost World has its own issues at
But
different.
it's a great looking movie.
Yeah. And This is Spielberg just moving forward for the
Hmm.
most part. I can't confirm that Jan Kaminski has done every single one of his films after this, but at least the vast majority of them he has.
Hmm.
And he brought that very specific look to AI, Minority Report, and War of the Worlds. That's just like I just the lighting
It's
is
so good.
so bright and it gives this like very specific look to it, and it fits those science fiction films so well. And here, like you said, there's moments where this feels really inspired
Yeah.
cinematography, and just like, wow, this is why this got nominated. Which
Yeah.
I don't know what won, but I'm assuming it was Titanic. Yeah,
Oh, yeah, it must have been. I just
because
looked this up. I should know this. I think it
because
was
you
Titanic.
know Titanic won 11, so it didn't win any of the acting ones. So it just won everything technical,
Yeah.
and which this didn't win any acting ones too. I know Robin Williams beat uh Anthony Hopkins then
Hmm.
for best supporting actor for Good Will Hunting.
Yeah.
But
It was Titanic for cinematography, and it also uh beat Amistad for score.
yep,
Which this is back when they would split it into like the best score for dramatic or musical or comedy score, which I don't really understand that. And
that's
in
just
the
more awards.
I know in the best original musical or comedy score, they have Men in Black, which is funny. Which it
But
is a funny movie, but I wouldn't necessarily go the great comedy Men in Black. It's like the Golden Globes had the Martian is a comedy and all that.
the score is amazing.
I know that's why I singled it out. It's such a good score. Danny
Yep.
Elfman,
Yeah.
I don't he deserves so many more nominations than he got in like the 90s.
It's like if you need something quirky and weird and different to give
Mm-hmm.
your film a unique feel, him
Yeah.
the combination of him and Barry Sonnenfeld was so inspired for Men
Mm-hmm.
in Black, because Men in Black has such a weird, quirky feel to it, and then
Yeah.
that music just lays it on there. But I'm not surprised it's got it. Like it obviously deserved like the handful of nominations it got, but like I don't think it like I feel like this would have been a film that the Oscars would have given 50 Academy Awards to. But
Sure.
it was
It was a big
Titanic.
year. Yeah, and
Titanic just came roaring in.
as good as it gets. Good Will Hunting, L.A. Confidential, and The Full Monty were the Best Picture nominees, along with Titanic.
Oh, I'm a huge LA Confidential fan,
Mm-hmm.
and uh, I wish it won more,
Mm-hmm.
like Best Picture.
Yeah.
But it was Titanic's year, and what a titan of a year it was. You know, only two other films have won that many Academy Awards, so there you go.
Mm-hmm.
And it was Lord of the Rings, Return of the King, 6 years later. But to wrap things up, we have some recommendations for everybody. So Foster, go ahead.
All right, I'm gonna recommend. This is technically a two-part mini series from the 70s, but anywhere you find it, they're just smushed together, and it just looks like a 3-hour movie. It's called Sybil, Sybil, and it stars Sally Field and Joanne Woodward. So I've been, because of the Paul Newman Joanne Woodward documentary that
Oh,
came out,
yeah.
the Ethan Hawke one, I've been trying to catch up on some of these movies. Because like honestly, I had barely seen any at that point with Joanne Woodward or Paul Newman. And so I'm kind of using it as an excuse just to knock off things off my watch list that I've been curious about for a long time. And this was one of them. So Sally Field plays a patient with multiple personality disorder. I think the true story has been kind of debunked at this point. Uh, some elements are still true, like the traumatic childhood stuff is still true, but the like actual manifestation of it, I think, is disputed. But anyways, watch this for Sally Field. It is quite literally one of the greatest performances I've ever seen in my life. It is not even close. I am so confident in this performance. There is not a chance you watch this and don't agree. This was the feel. It's been like a couple months, but since I watched this, because it was right after the last time I was on here for whatever
Uh,
it was, for always. But I've been holding on to this one because it's so good, and I feel like people should see it. It's not like a super cinematic because again, I think it's just made for TV. Joanne Woodward plays her therapist, which is really cool because 20 years earlier, Joanne Woodward's big like claim to fame was winning the Oscar for The Three Faces of Eve, which is like the prototypical like multiple personality movie. So that's a cool like little meta casting there, and she's really good in this too. Were you gonna say something?
I just said interesting. Gonna have to check
Yeah,
it out.
yeah. And so Sally Field plays like all the different personalities, and it's really really impressive. But even more so is like as they explore the psychology of it in therapy, some of the like emotional catharsis moments in the end, bonkers amazing acting. I remember feeling right after I finished, I was like, this is the best like multiple personality thing I've ever seen. Like even James McAvoy, even like Tony Collette, who I love in United States of Terra, which is a fun underrated show, I think, and even like the not really multiple personality, but like Rory Kinnear and Men, who I love. I feel like this is like the gold standard. Honestly, it's just so good, and it makes me wonder why Sally Field, who had like a big run back then. I don't know why she's not considered like one of the like top few all-time great actors after watching her in this because it's nuts. And she's fairly young in this too, like maybe around 30.
Yeah, it's interesting because like my main experiences when I was younger with Sally Fields was one, Forrest Gump,
Yep.
two, Mrs. Doubtfire,
Yep.
and three, I watched a lot of Smokey and the Bandit. So, but between like Norma Ray and this, and like I appreciated that she got like I feel like she got some time, speaking of Spielberg, some time to shine in Lincoln in
Mm-hmm.
terms of those scenes, which that was very interesting because like I don't know if they're like Sally Fields and Daniel Day Lewis are roughly the same age, but it was interesting dynamic watching that in Lincoln. But that's some great acting right there. So I'll definitely have to check that out. I've since it's been a while, I definitely have. I always like to do three recommendations. One new film that I saw, The Territory, which it didn't overtake Fire of Love for my favorite documentary this year, but like it came close. This film is about a group of land grabbers stealing and cutting down the rainforest away from a tribe in Brazil. And this film, like, it's harrowing and disturbing, and it's so interesting the way that it portrays different perspectives on like there's some of these land grabbers are like, my god said that I have the right to take this land, and it's just like that conviction versus like these people, this tribe is, which has less than 200 people left in it, has been living here for centuries and generations, and this film has like attempted kidnapping and murder and all kinds of stuff like that. I'm like, holy crap. It was a shocking film. It's like an hour and 23 minutes. It's from National Geographic. Darren Aronofsky produced it. I'm like, well, that makes a lot of sense. Um, the one film that I watched off of my watch list that I wanted to talk about the most was In the Name of the Father, which I just got
Yeah.
done watching, which just the acting between Daniel Day Lewis and Pete Postlewaite and Emma Thompson, and this is one of the most disturbing miscarriages of justice
Mm-hmm.
I've seen in a like portrayed in a film of like a group of young Irish people, and also one of their fathers being sent to prison for a bombing that they had nothing to do with.
Yeah.
And like Jerry Conlon spent 15 years in prison, and this is like Daniel Day Lewis being like a normal person
Mm-hmm.
for once. And it's still an amazing performance. He was nominated for Best Actor. Speaking of like 93, Schindler's List, because
It's a great year.
between
Yeah.
Daniel Day Lewis and Liam Neeson both losing to Tom Hanks for Philadelphia, and it's just like anti Irish propaganda over here.
Yeah.
But Daniel Day Lewis is amazing. It's such a the interrogation scenes that they have in that are so uncomfortable. I'm just
Mm-hmm.
like, this is messed up. And one of my movies that I rewatched recently, and this is now for something completely different, is Creed. And
Ah,
just rewatching Creed, just I'm a huge Rocky fan.
mhm.
I feel like being an Italian American from outside of Philadelphia, it's like part of your lifeblood. But like this was such a interesting revigoration of this franchise because I'll argue with anybody. Rocky Balboa is one of the best films in the franchise, but like that felt like the end. Like it didn't need to be touched anymore. And then Ryan Coogler came along with this idea. And Stallone, like Mark Rylance is great in Bridge of Spies, and I'll talk about that in a couple of months.
Yeah.
But come on,
I agree with you.
give Sly that Oscar.
Because it's like it's never happening again.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
It's just not.
And also you had I remember Tom Hardy that year for The Revenant, who's also so good.
Which
Um,
I feel like he got taken for granted
mhm.
for how great Tom Hardy is as an actor because Fitzgerald is such a piece of it in that movie, and he is amazing.
Yeah.
Uh, but that was like the coming out party, I feel like, for Mark Rylance to general audiences was Bridge of
Mhm.
Spies. And like he's had some really great performances since then too. It's just oh every time there's so many great moments, and I love this like sassy older Rocky training Michael B. Jordan in this
Yeah.
movie. And it's like, yeah, I don't know what that alarm is, but that's not an alarm to stop. And he just keeps going. I think the line that I laugh at the most is, "Hey, Honk, it's up in the cloud." He's like, "What cloud?" And just like, oh, boomer humor. Just being like,
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know what you're talking about. But Creed is such an amazingly shot film too. It's just a great
Mhm.
film, and legitimately is up there as like peak Rocky movies. And now, whatever the hell's happening with this franchise and Sylvester Stallone being super pissed off that they're getting a Drago spinoff and he has nothing to do with it.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Sticky situations, and eventually we will get Creed 3.
Mhm.
I was actually looking forward to that at Thanksgiving this year, but tons of things are getting pushed back. Just ask Warner Brothers.
Mhm.
Awkward. But that is a wrap here on this week of Welcome to the Wasteland. Foster, thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me as always.
And thank all of you for always tuning in and supporting your Wasteland Reviewer.